If you're looking to try to quit your W-2 job, is there a better way to start business than just starting from scratch? That's what we're going to talk about today. Hello, my fellow Ripplers. This is Chris Miles, your cash flow expert and anti-financial advisor. This show is for you, you work so hard for that money, and you're now ready for that money to start working harder for you today. You want to become work optional, where you work because you want to, not because you have to, where you have enough passive income coming in to be able to live the life that you love with those you love. But it's not just about getting rich. It's about living that rich life. Because as you grow and you prosper more financially, rather than just focusing on yourself, you now have a greater ability to create a ripple effect through the lives of those around you. Thank you so much for allowing me to create that ripple effect through you. Again, shout out to those of you. You've been binging on these episodes one by one, and I know there's a lot of them to get through. You've been, sharing this with other people. We appreciate it so much and putting us one of the top podcasts in the country. So thank you so much for being a part of that today. Over now been the last 11 years. So thank you for being a part of this. As a reminder, guys, if you're looking for a way to create more passive income, you're trying to figure out, how do I get my money to actually work harder for me? Do I have anything I can be using to make more money, make more passive income, even in the next 12 months? Go to moneyripples.com. There's a passive income calculator that you can try out today to see what's possible in your situation. Go try that right now. All right, so today I'm excited to bring back, well, actually, I guess I haven't brought you back, but bring for the first time. It's probably gonna be something I'm gonna be bringing back anyways, but bring for the first time Doug Thorpe. Now, Doug worked with lots of in business for so many years. And what I love that he's done, not only is he a successful business owner in his own right with the businesses he started up, including his own Doug Thorpe group and everything else, but guys, like, he is actually here to talk to us about how can you actually start a business without having to start a business, how to do it without starting from scratch, how to do it so that you don't have to start from square one where you're likely to fail. Because how many times have we heard people fail in business, 60% of the time in 5 years, right? Well, is there a way to adjust that? Is there a way to actually increase your success, lower your risk, make it more certain where you can have higher success? That's what we brought Doug to talk about with us today. So Doug, welcome to our show.
Hey, Chris, pleasure to be here. Really looking forward to diving into this. It's such a neat and interesting topic, and so happy to help.
Absolutely. Well, give us some more of your backstory. Like, tell us, I mean, obviously you're not new to this business space. You have over 30 years experience doing this stuff. Tell us like what your journey was like. What led you to where you are today?
Well, real quick thumbnail, and I'll keep it brief. I have been a student of leadership theory my whole life. I had a chance to be commissioned out of college and go into the Army as a commissioned officer, spent some time on active duty doing that. And of course, a big part of what we were doing there was learning leadership. But upon leaving the military, I joined a regional bank that was near me. I live in the Houston area, and this bank was headquartered here. It was called Texas Commerce. It was one of the most productive and profitable banks of its kind. The thing I like to talk about there, in the 20 years I was there, we ran off 64 consecutive quarters of earnings growth. That's 16
Wow.
years of progressive. When you plot it out, it's that beautiful ski slope, that we
Yeah.
were going up and climbing. And that served us through a couple of oil busts and real estate busts. And not that we didn't have hard times in the market, we did, but we had such a great leadership team and a plan for doing what we did, and we stuck to it, and that was the result. So it was a great learning laboratory for me, and an opportunity, but it also exposed me to a whole lot of different kinds of businesses. We were predominantly a commercial bank.
Mhm.
We didn't worry so much about personal checking accounts and car loans, home loans, and boat loans, but we did business loans.
Mhm.
And that was our forte. We were business bankers, and I had a chance to look at a lot of different businesses. I parlayed that over the years into what is now my own coaching practice. I help people with their leadership effectiveness, but more importantly, with the businesses they might be a part of. And for our topic today, what I said I would share with everybody is this concept of what's called entrepreneurship by acquisition.
Hmm.
We are in a unique time in world economy and American history for sure. We have millions of baby boomers wanting to cash out.
Yes.
They're aging out and wanting to cash out of the businesses they've put all the sweat equity into building up and growing up. And they're ready to, take off in that new chapter of their lives. So there's an incredible number, and the government has tagged it at about $6 trillion of wealth that's going to change hands in the next 10 years.
Wow.
And it's a perfect time for someone who is grinding in a W-2 job to think about taking a nest egg that they might have built up. And as you alluded to, invest that money in buying an already successful business and not worrying about the pains and trouble of trying to start something from scratch.
Now, yeah, I want to go into that deeper because I know with some of the statistics, especially with the millions of baby boomers that are now looking to transition out, I know most of those businesses have virtually no value, right? They're like very self-driven businesses. You're not talking about buying the self-driven business as
No,
much, right? You're
no.
talking about the ones that actually have a system in place and a team and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and even more specifically, I'm talking largely about very traditional, what you might call home service-based businesses, plumbers, electricians, HVAC
Oh yeah.
companies, roofers, painters, trim, cabinets, flooring, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a whole spectrum. When you look at a NAICS code list, there's about 35 categories that fit under that spectrum. And the beauty of those businesses is or at least the companies that have been successful over the years, there is a team. It's not the
Yeah.
owner. It, I use the phrase, and I don't mean any disrespect by this, but I call it chuck in a truck. It's not the one guy driving around doing the work. They've built a team. They have master plumbers, master electricians, seasoned veterans in
Mm.
that business on their team. They have a front office that takes customer calls and does dispatch and manages the day to day. And the owner is in a position to, as is popularly said, work on the business, not in the business.
Right.
And the work I do with aspiring entrepreneurs who want to move into those businesses is number one, to search the market and run some tests and determine, is this business I'm looking at truly one of those management run versus owner led? And
Hmm.
you might still find an owner-led business, but it's right on the cusp of being management run. I was out in Albuquerque 2 weeks ago with one of my clients who just bought a business, and we had a meeting with his leadership team. We had 8 people around the table talking about the future of that business and that team being the ones to make it happen. So again, it wasn't just the new owner on the line, worrying about things, but it was the team of people that came with the purchase that were being kind of indoctrinated into the reality of the new owner and challenged with the idea, do you have some ideas? You've been here at this company a while. Do you have some ideas and thoughts that haven't seen the light of day yet? What would you like to do? And man, we had a rich and robust day of discussion. And sure enough, and it always happens, good people have great ideas.
Hmm.
And for whatever reason, the prior owner maybe didn't allow them to be heard or didn't want to implement them. And maybe it was just their own personal comfort. They had a lifestyle they enjoyed. They didn't want any new headaches. So why try anything new? Let's just do it the way we've always done it. But the guys doing the work, they know there's a better way. And then they're willing to share.
Well, that brings up a few questions for me, and I'm thinking from my perspective, and I'm sure I'm not alone, although I might be the extreme case for you. But looking at my situation, like I think, you know, I might spend like at least once a week at Lowe's, you know, but that's not because I'm a handy kind of guy. In fact, my wife wears the tool belt in the family. I'm just the one that's going there to like carry stuff, like that's about as all I'm good for. When it comes to any handiwork and stuff, I'm a complete idiot to this kind of thing. Is this something that even if I come from that space, maybe I do have business experience in my case, right? Maybe, and I know some of these people might be like some of these W-2, workers that are looking to leave their job to find something else like this. Maybe they have management experience. Is this something that can still work even if you're not a real expert in that business?
Absolutely, absolutely, and it happens all the time. And in fact, in the landscape that I work,
Mhm.
it's more the rule than it is the exception that the person that's moving in doesn't have direct experience. I've got a guy, he was a wealth management professional for about 15 years, got tired of that life, helping other people make money. He came to the market, did his work, did his homework, took advantage of some training programs that we've got, and went out and bought a plumbing business. And in 18 months, he's already doubled the bottom line. Why? It's not because
Wow.
he's a smart plumber.
Mhm.
It's because he was a good business guy. He already had a good sense of financial management, record keeping, and looking for opportunity. But he came in with a fresh lens and a fresh set of eyes and some new blood to really, re-energize and leverage what great work had already been developed in that company by the seller and bring some new ideas. And he did a small, it's not even a really, you could call it a roll up. We called it more of a tuck in. It was a complementary business. A guy just down the road from him had a business that was kind of ancillary to plumbing. It was the owner and I think four guys, and they made a deal, and my person made him an offer on his business and rolled it right up into his, and that added about 30% to the bottom line right away when they did that.
Wow.
And then he's done some other really neat things, and we don't have time to go into all the details, but he's
Mhm.
he's been able to double his bottom line in about 18 months just with some smart thinking about what to do.
That's incredible. Well, and see, that's kind of led to my next question too, which was, you know, um, I know you definitely train on leadership. I would imagine like that would be the thing that I think many people even watching this right now would say, yeah, but could I do it? Right? Could it be me? Even if they've had management experience, they might say, well, I had this little, stewardship that I had on the team or the company I worked for, but how does that translate over as a business owner, which in some ways does have a lot of more skill sets to go with it than just being a manager. What do you do to kind of help somebody prepare for something like that?
Well, that is exactly what I do with my coaching and advisory work. I have a
Yeah.
whole team of associates with me that we provide that support. We can come alongside pretty much at any stage of the process. We can help you through the search and acquisition phase with some of the more technical nuances like running through due diligence, finding a quality of earnings provider to help with the numbers, to do the initial analysis before you buy the deal. I've got referrals in my network from some really top-notch SBA lenders, and we can talk about the beautiful advantage of some SBA financing that's available to do these deals. But also, and what my true passion is, to be honest, is the transition phase. It's
Mhm.
one thing to do the work to acquire the business and go to the closing table, but it's a whole different thing to plan and execute on that transition. And we have a project plan, if you will, of things to think about, things to do. We hit four areas really hard, and these are four areas that are common in all businesses: people, process, product, and performance.
Mm.
And our project plan addresses all four of those key pillars in a business and helps a new owner think about what the next steps need to be. And every business is a little bit different, every situation is a little bit different. But working to, for instance, assess the talent you've got on the team, do you have key man risk?
Mhm.
If the owner, this prior owner goes away, is his brother-in-law your general manager? Well, that could be a problem.
Right.
And that's a very real scenario that we see from time to time. The owner, the founder has some family and friends involved in the business. When they decide to cash out, that leaves those other people in a bind sometimes. But we've had deals where that was true, and those family members stayed on, still contributed. They loved the work, they loved the job, they got to know the new owner, and were really happy to stay around. And it all worked out just fine.
If you've been following this podcast, you're probably looking for great ways to create passive income right now, right? Well, we got you covered here with Central Lending. Central Lending specializes in alternative investments that actually are designed to create steady returns and long-term financial security for you and your family. Now, they prioritize transparency. They love, building those strong relationships, giving you that confidence and peace of mind, knowing that you have your money working harder for you, so you don't have to work so hard for that money. You want to learn more how to do that? Go to centrallending.com and check out what they've got today to create your passive income and wealth creation right now. That definitely sounds like a dream come true, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
I was going to ask you this kind of a side note, off topic here, but do you also help with those on the other end of the table, those that maybe are on the cusp? Maybe they're very owner operated, but they want to get it to the point where they can sell it for a better dollar, right? A better value by having it more people and process driven versus owner driven. Do you
I
help with that as
do.
well?
Yeah, we can apply that same four pillar model to those owner founders that are thinking about selling, and maybe even they've talked to a broker and they've been told, "Oh, sorry, Bubba, your company's only worth $3 million." In your mind, you think, "Oh, I need like five if I really want to
Mhm.
execute on my retirement plan. Three's not enough."
Yeah.
Well, we can come in and do a deep dive assessment and help structure a plan that for the next maybe year, 18 months, 2 years, there are some things you can do to adjust the business to boost it up to that higher valuation level. It happens all the time that there are those kind of opportunities to come in. And if you're willing as an owner to operate an extra 2 years and you're going to get an extra 2 million in your cash out payday, it's a pretty
Might be
good
worth
deal.
it.
Pretty
Yeah,
good deal.
definitely. Well, let's take a quick break here because obviously you got a podcast. You just had me as a guest on that. Tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Yeah, the name of the show is Leadership Powered by Common Sense. We've got audio and video versions of it. We are on YouTube, channel by the same name. And the audio version is streaming on all the major networks and channels. And similar to you, we've had a great following and a great boost, and we're showing up in pretty high rank ratings on some of the different tracking services that are out there, Apple, FeedSpot, and some others. So
Yeah.
I'm real proud of that, and really, like you, I'm very appreciative to the followers and listeners who have made it be so.
Well, I can imagine a lot of the things you teach on leadership is taught there as well, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Well, fantastic. Well, be sure to follow that, guys. Like we'll put that in the show notes as well here. So okay, going back to this, and again, I'm asking this just as much for myself as I might be for my listeners, right? But one of the big things I would of course I would think is like the biggest obstacle for not even getting started is that someone might just say, well, where do I look? I mean, am I looking in my backyard? Am I looking to do something that's virtual? And where would I even find the right deals? And especially because I know for myself, I would ideally, I mean, I'll know some people would just rather have something that's more turnkey where they say they can jump in, something that already has a system in place. But I'm looking more of like that owner operated one, which is kind of that, yeah, I can buy, not bottom dollar, but I could buy much less dollar, but then convert it to higher profitability. I know if I, get in a good situation like that, how does somebody even go about finding the right deal?
Well, there are a couple of answers to that question. First is the popular on-market listing services, websites like BizBuySell.
Mhm.
That's what they do. They're kind of like the MLS of the business world. Somebody wants to sell a business, they can line up with a broker and get a posting out on one of those websites. And I don't know, right now, I can't even name them all. There's probably about a dozen sites like that take listings and aggregate them. The other thing is to look in your area for business brokers.
Mm.
Now, one caveat, and I don't want to make enemies with anybody, but business brokers are a little bit like real estate brokers. Not everybody's a rock star doing that work.
Like financial
You,
advisors, right?
like financial advisors, you need to ask around.
Yeah.
In many situations, easier to get a license than it is to be good at what you're doing.
Right.
And so you want to shop around if you are going to go to a broker. And the best business brokers that I know, they actually do a lot of work. They help with that front end analysis. They try to level set and create reasonable expectations on how the transaction's going to go down. And if you're a seller, you show up for your broker and you say, I want 5 million. And the broker says, I'm sorry, I can't get you more than three. Well, number one, that's a great broker if he's being that kind of honest with you. There
Yeah.
are brokers that will say, great, you want five? I'll post it for five. Well, you may sit there for 2 years listing and not get any takers whatsoever. So,
Right.
seller beware on that situation. But for the buyers, I was in a webinar the other day, and we were actually talking about using ChatGPT to do some of the searching,
Huh.
and it's actually pretty amazing what you can get. You could dial in your parameters. You could say, I want something in the greater Dallas area, and
Mhm.
I want it to be a plumbing business that has been in existence more than 10 years. That's not a
Mhm.
bad parameter to start with
Yeah.
because, like all small businesses, if you've stuck around 10 years, you must have something going on
Right.
because, you know, not all businesses last that long, right? So
Mhm.
you can do very basic parameters like that and you can start getting lists. I have had one client who was very hungry and very aggressive. He was driving down the road one day, saw a sign for a shop that appealed to him. He went online, did his research, found out who the owner of that shop was, and actually drove to the guy's house and walked up and knocked on the door.
That's
Right
a little
around
scary.
dinner time, little gutsy, but he said, "Hi, I'm so and so. I'm a private investor. I am looking to buy a business like yours. I saw your shop over on Elm Street. Is there any chance you're interested in selling?" And the guy's eyes just lit up and he said, "My God, this is weird. I just started talking about selling the business.
Wow.
What are you doing? What are you thinking about?" And one thing led to another, and they've got a deal going on.
Incredible. I'll tell you, Doug, it's actually after we spoke a little while back, I actually went to bizbuysell.com and I was overwhelmed. Even when I narrowed down the search parameter to, just in my local area, I was shocked just how many businesses are on there. And I'll admit, like, I mean, there's so many categories and subcategories. I was just I was lost. Like after I probably spent a good half hour or so on the site, and then I was like, I'm gonna be on here for hours. And I don't know if that's even worth my time to do. So I abandoned it. I left. I was like, I can't do this. What's
Well,
yeah,
going back to the baby boomer idea, the hard reality is a lot of people started businesses, and then when they started having families, they said, "Well, this will be cool. I'll give this to my kids." But
right.
the percentage of the next generation that steps in to take on the business is actually quite low. Most of the time, the kids say, "I've watched mom or dad do this business for 10 years. There's no way I'm going to get in that business."
Hmm.
And that's kind of the more dominant attitude. So it leaves the owner founder really stuck to try to they have really no choice but to go to the market and just say, "All right, I'm ready to cash out. I'm putting my business up for sale."
Well, that was kind of my question to you, Doug, is that, I mean, do you have resources, whether it be business brokers or even just internally within your system that can help someone kind of narrow that down and even be able to find something
Oh
just
yeah.
like that?
Yeah, we do. And I've got, more in-depth I've got a playbook that is in the form of an online course that we sell out of my business that helps people understand the steps and the considerations and the things to consider as you're going to market. And there, as I've alluded to here, there are other options above and beyond just simply sitting at your computer browsing one of the listing sites. There are other things to think about.
That's great. Well, if somebody wanted to follow you that way or be able to reach out and be able to learn more about your services and how you can help support someone just like this, right? What's the best way they can do that?
Best way to do it is hop over to my website. I've actually got two. You can go to under my name, Doug Thorpe, THORPE.com. That's where we focus a lot on my more of the coaching and leadership development work. But my company name is Headway Exec, HeadwayExec.com. That's where we talk about the business acquisition and business transition support that we provide folks.
That's a fantastic resource. And so we'll be sure to put that in the show notes just so everybody can do that, especially if you're driving. We don't want you to die just trying to get this because you're like, I don't want to lose this. You don't have to worry. It's going to be there. So definitely go check that out, guys. Well, Doug, last question for you. This is the Money Ripples podcast, right? And we talk about that ripple effect that you create in people's lives. Well, Doug, what do you feel is your ripple effect that you can create in the lives of others?
You know, that's a great question. And I have always been, and I continue to be what I consider a servant leader. My best fulfillment is seeing others prosper. And I'm a big believer in that. And that's why I do what I do and mostly how I do what I do. And the reality is, for as long as I've been around, I've built a pretty good sized network of some really incredible folks like yourself, Chris. And when somebody calls me and says, Doug, I got a problem, can you fix it? If I can't, I probably know somebody that can.
Mhm.
And I'm more than happy to open up my contact base and identify some other players that might be able to come alongside and help you with whatever question you might be dealing with.
That's great. I can definitely tell you have that servant heart. You're definitely that kind of go-giver in a sense, and really looking to help other people. And I appreciate you spending your time to come on this show as well.
You bet. Happy to be here, Chris.
Yeah. Well, everybody, as I said, if you want to learn more, like if maybe you're looking for that opportunity, maybe you don't want to start something from scratch, but you're looking for something that's kind of ready-made for you. It could be something you could step into and actually allow you to transition out of the corporate world and into something where you have more control of your time, your money, and your freedom. Guys, reach out to Doug. Like I said, his contact information is in the show notes there. But guys, the thing is this, is that you can listen to these things all day long. But it's not about the hearer of the words. The doer is the one that gets to see the results in their lives. If you want to make a change, make it happen. Go and make it a wonderful and prosperous week, and we'll see you later.